what are we going to remember? We're going to remember thoughts based on how we feel that day. So if we're feeling stressed, we're feeling anxious, we're feeling depressed, $100 says, like, what are your thoughts going to be? They're going to match what you feel. And when you're just in your head, that's all you see, that's all you think, that's all you feel. And when we think those thoughts over and over again, we're likely to kind of come up with evidence for how those thoughts are true. Even though they might not be true.
Hey, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee. Today, we're going to be chatting with a therapist. You get to sit in on a therapy session with me, I guess. I don't know. But before we jump into that, this conversation with Angela Ficken today is going to be awesome. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. She's going to be talking about managing and dealing with stress and anxiety, and especially in terms of a business owner or a manager or a leader, how you burden a lot of that stress and what should you do with it, some healthy and some unhealthy ways that you can deal with those types of things. Before we jump into the conversation, though, I want to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. It's very easy, and actually it is 100% free. Satisfaction guaranteed, or your money back. But make sure you hit the subscribe button, whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or if you're watching or you want to watch, go check it out on YouTube or Facebook. You can subscribe or follow us there, and you can see whatever the latest episode is that comes out every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. We've been doing this for over 3 years, so we have tons of episodes for you to check out. Maybe this is your first one and you're joining us and you say, what is this all about? Well, go check out all the other episodes. You can do that by visiting Loc-Doc.net/podcast. Now that that's all out of the way, grab a cup of coffee and get ready for this conversation.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Angela, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So you're coming to us from Boston.
Yes.
I think you're one of the first guests from Boston. I'm not. If I recall all of the locations, that is one I don't know that we've had. If it has been, I can't remember. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Boston is a great city, so I'm glad to be the first if I am.
Well, I've wanted to visit. My wife and I have both wanted to visit Boston for quite some time, and it just for whatever reason we get up to New York. We make it up to New York on a semi-regular basis, but we just never quite make it to Boston. So it's still on our list. In the fall, most likely, though, is where we're...
Yes, I would suggest if you're going to come in the fall. It's really beautiful here. And it's a walkable city, so highly recommend. And let me know if you're in town.
All right. Sounds great. All right, let's jump into it. We have to get through rapid fire for randomly selected questions just to get under your skin with unknown point values, and then we will give you a score at the end. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Question number 1. What is something that you own that you have never used?
Something that I have owned that I have never used. I don't even know, I don't even know what it's called anymore because it's been that long. Mm-hmm. But those I want to say iPods, but they're like the ones the devices that you plug in your music and
mm-hmm.
listen to it, and you didn't need your cell phone.
Like an iPod or a shuffle or something like that.
Yeah, shuffle. Okay. Yes,
the little teeny tiny one.
Yeah, the little teeny tiny one. So asked that for a Christmas gift from my husband a few years ago. Sorry, and had every intention of using it. And never did because I would just carry my phone everywhere. Mm-hmm. And we had recently moved a few months ago, and I found it in a box. I'm like, uh-oh. So I just put it back in the box. So I thought maybe one day my daughter will think, oh, what's this? And it'll be an interesting conversation. So I didn't get rid of it. I felt too guilty. So that is the one thing that I have that I have never used.
That is a funny piece of technology that was cutting edge, but now is effectively useless at this point. Like, mm-hmm. Why would you, especially, if you have a smartwatch or anything like that, why would you carry another device that you have to clip on and keep up with and charge and all that?
Right. Yeah. And I can't keep track of calls or, listen to certain things, call my mom if I want to as I'm walking, change my mind, all of these things. So count my steps. Like the phone does so much.
Sure.
So
I think
there you have it.
It had a really good intention when it first came out, but I think it got saturated up by other things. You said it'll be funny for your daughter to see that in the future. We were doing some cleanup a couple of weeks ago, and our daughter, she's 13, found an old cassette deck, a cassette player, and she calls it a record player, which is even funnier. But she's, look at this cool thing I found, Dad. So anyways, all right, moving along. Question number 2, what is your current favorite TV show? And then what was your favorite TV show 5 years ago, roughly?
My favorite TV show now that I watch on repeat, I find very soothing, is The British Bake Off.
Okay.
So I've watched every season and watch it. I just find the whole process very soothing and fun. I love that the people on the show get really close and you can kind of see some friendships building. And I think that's fun. So that is my kind of go-to. 5 years ago, it was probably some like British murder mystery thing. I used to love those. But since becoming a mom, like I can't watch it anymore. I get too scared. So that stuff, like I can't even tolerate like Law and Order anymore. I'm just like, nope. Now it might be more Father Brown, PBS, murder mysteries. So that was probably something that I saw 5 years ago. My all-time favorite TV show, though, is My So-Called Life, which will date me in the 90s, with Claire Danes and Jared Leto. It was a wonderful show that was, I think, just one season and canceled, but it was just a beautiful show about kids in high school. So I used to have that on VHS. I loved it so much.
Come on now.
Yeah, I know. My So-Called Life, I love that show.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen My So-Called Life. Now, the Law and Order, that one, yeah, we used to watch that all the time, but we haven't even turned it on in many years. So interesting. All right. Next up, it probably has something to do with the kids as well. Let's see. Here we go. Number 3, what is your favorite thing to do when you're all alone?
Lounge. Just complete quiet time. So I'll usually be either on the couch or, as I call it, starfishing in bed. So I just take up as much room as I possibly can. And I will either be watching the British baking show, or I'll be listening to a book listening to a book. I can't read anymore. My attention span just is gone these days, but I can listen. Or catching up on podcasts while I scroll through like online shopping, and, just having that mindless time, I think is actually very restorative. So if that's probably my all-time favorite thing to do if I was alone. Gotcha.
Question number 4, what is something that you don't mind waiting for?
There's probably a few things I don't mind waiting for. Although that, I guess it's hard when I think about the list. I'm like, sometimes it's hard to wait. I don't mind waiting for people. I'm usually early. It's just something that tends to happen. So I don't mind waiting for friends if I'm the first one there. I don't mind waiting for my daughter in the morning as she comes downstairs. I don't mind waiting for my husband if I'm in the car before him. I just kind of hang out and, I don't know, have my time to kind of just be. So that's, I guess, something I don't mind waiting for.
Don't mind waiting for people. I would totally disagree with you on that. Very impatient. Question number 5, last one. What is something that you feel is completely unacceptable that is still being done today?
There's a few things that I could answer that. That's a hot button topic there. So many things that are happening today can you say the question again, just so I can be really thoughtful with it?
What is something that you feel is unacceptable that is still being done today?
see, my mind just goes to like the environment, right?
Yeah.
So it's that we know better, but we're not really doing better. I mean, I'll throw myself in there as I like throw out plastic bags, right?
Sure.
That's my answer.
That's insightful, because I don't know that I would have gone down that path, but that's intriguing, because we have been, as a society, better educated on something like that, but we still make those same decisions over and over again without really focusing much on it. So that's very interesting. Cool. All right. Well, you passed. Congratulations. 5 questions, rapid fire. We'll give you a score of 871.
Woo! Thanks.
Congratulations. All right. Well, let's jump into the conversation today. And kind of give a little bit of an introduction to who you are. Obviously, we were just kind of talking through some of the fun questions, but you're a full-time psychotherapist. Break it down for us, kind of what it is that you're doing on a daily basis, because this sounds fun to me.
Yeah, it is fun. It definitely has challenges, which we can get into. We talked a little bit earlier about the challenges of entrepreneur world and being self-employed, but I get to talk to people all day and hear about what they want to work on and try to help them understand themselves better. Why do you do the things that you do? And then where do you get tripped up, and what strategies can we come up with that will help you not get tripped up in the same way? So it's a lot of being curious, asking questions, and trying to help people problem solve. So that's what I do. And I do a lot of sitting all day.
I like this. I think I could be a psychotherapist. Talk to people, ask them what they're getting hung up with, help them walk through it. It's a fun job. It's a fun job. It is. That's why I've been doing it for so long. And it has been a calling. It's something that I've wanted since I was a kid. So what got you interested in that?
So as a kid growing up, I was in therapy, and my parents weren't together. I was struggling through that. And then my therapist, I adored her. She was incredibly helpful. And I thought, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I wanted to be her. And someone who would listen, was always there, just held all information, and just was your person. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was something that I was drawn to. Mm-hmm. So even as a kid, I thought this is what I want to do, and studied psychology in undergrad. And then from there, I just kind of built, and that's how it kind of got started when I was like 10 years old. Yeah. Do you get a interesting satisfaction out of helping people kind of solve their problem, whatever that problem is, helping them work through it? Yeah, it's being on the journey with them that's so satisfying, right? And knowing that you have a part in seeing them get better and feel better, mm-hmm. That you are a part in helping them get there. That is pure joy. So when somebody can say, I feel better, that was so helpful. I'm having better relationships with people because of the things that you've taught me, and that I could be there for them in that way. That is, that's just pure joy for me, and kind of helps me it refuels my own tank, to kind of dive back under and keep doing it.
We understand the frustrations HOA board members and property managers face when deciding the best solution for their HOA and pool security. Should we use a keypad, hand out keys, or install a key card system? Do we even need cameras? These are some of the questions that are difficult to navigate, and we're here to help. At Loc-Doc Security, we've spent over 20 years working with homeowners associations and property managers to find the system that best fits the pool and HOA needs. Camera systems for the front gate or front entrance, key card systems for the pool gates, or simply updating the gate so that it meets safety and code compliance. We like to take the guesswork out of the process to answer any questions and help find the right solution. Our mission is to help you protect your people and your property, and that includes pools. Contact our team today to schedule your free consultation for your community. want to draw an interesting parallel, and forgive me if this is just totally off kilter here, but we're kind of be talking through a conversation here of dealing with, I guess, stress and anxiety and maybe even depression as it pertains to maybe the world of entrepreneurship or where people are at their current process in life. Something that several things that you just said struck an interesting, I don't want to say nerve, but an interesting perspective with me. As business owners, as entrepreneurs, if you've built a team, oftentimes you find yourself sitting in conversations one-on-one with people, listening to things that they're stuck on, things that they're trying to work through, personal, in business, and constantly, I guess at that point, burdening the stress that other people have in trying to accomplish whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. Is that part of what you see in dealing with entrepreneurs and business leaders, that they're effectively just taking on everybody else's stress and everybody else's burden through that process? Or is that just totally crazy?
No, it's not crazy at all. That is certainly part of it when you own it all, essentially, right? Like you're the reason why they're there. If you are the business owner, mm-hmm. you're at the top and everybody is kind of below you and working for you and working with you. And so that if they don't know how to kind of manage their own stress and anxiety, it goes up.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to manage your own stress and anxiety and you're a feeler, because entrepreneurs, people can be feelers, mm-hmm. You can kind of take on other people's feelings. So you can't even decipher, are you feeling angry or is Joe feeling angry, right? And then Joe's angry, so now you're angry because you care for Joe. So it's hard to kind of separate other people's emotions from yours sometimes. And then, you can kind of carry the load. If that means that, people in your company aren't happy because of certain way that things are being run, mm-hmm. you're carrying that too. So it's loaded, but that is not crazy. That definitely can happen.
So can we take that topic, I guess, or maybe that direction and say, what is a healthy way to deal with that? Because a healthy way to deal with that and an unhealthy way to deal with that. Is that a fair observation? Because let's just walk down the path of assuming that that's, and maybe you're going to say that there's ways to avoid taking all that on, but I'm just kind of walking through a natural process. I talk to a lot of other business owners on a regular basis, and you get to this point where that kind of same thing happens. You're listening, you're hearing, you're trying to navigate things. You hear other people's frustrations. You're trying to help them work through the frustrations or whatever, and then it just kind of spins in your head. And if you don't have anywhere to take it to, it just kind of stops there. And then I've heard a lot of folks talk about the depression that comes along with it, just kind of the anxiety that just kind of freezes them in their tracks of trying to make progress. So going back to my question, sorry that before I went off on my rant there, the healthy versus unhealthy way to deal with the things that come down the pipeline as kind of being that person.
So an unhealthy way to deal with it is to not deal with it, right? Or to deal with it in a way where it looks like you're being effective, but you're really not. So that could be somebody that goes to the gym a lot, and it's just like, well, that's my space to kind of work it out, but you're not thinking through. But somebody on the peripheral will say like, oh, well, Joe or Jane goes to the gym and look, they have time for wellness and self-care, and isn't that wonderful? But really all you're doing in your mind is stewing mile by mile, right? Or you're with your trainer and you're venting, but you're not able to process what it is you're saying. Mm-hmm. It's just coming out. So it can look like you are making progress or working something out, but you're not. Other times people will, it will come out through the ethers in other ways, like through irritability. Mm-hmm. You're grouchy. People now have to deal with your attitude and you're the boss. So they just have to deal with it, or your family gets it, right? Mm-hmm. People at work don't get it, but it funnels to the family, or maybe You pick up drinking more, or your relationship with food starts to suffer. So you lose your appetite, so you're not eating as much, or you're feeling so stressed out that you're eating down the house, right? And so you're not taking care of yourself, but you're looking for things that are trying to fill you up or trying to help you figure it out. You're just not, you're not coping well. That's what we call maladaptive coping skills. They look like you're coping and you're not. You're not doing it well because you're not processing, you're not getting at what is happening for you and what the problem is. So that's when it starts to be more of a problem. When you're at the top and you're holding on all these people's emotions, you have to have a place to process it and put it down and think through what is the issue, right? You have 5 employees who have issues. It's like, okay, you can help them problem solve. Are you using effective communication? What is it that the problem actually is? Is this something more about how they are, what they're bringing to the table versus what's actually happening in the company? Going to therapy yourself to kind of think through and strategize. And what can happen when we do hold in other people's stuff is our own negative thoughts, self-doubt. Am I any good at this? I'm a crap boss. I don't know what I'm doing. They're catching on that I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to leave. I'm not going to have a team. So you can go down the rabbit hole real fast in terms of negative thoughts, just because, again, you're hearing the noise of your company, which is very important to hear. But when you don't have a place for it, it can start to spin very quickly in unhelpful ways. So I think having those strategies to be able to hold it and problem solve for yourself will help you, one, just manage your own stress, anxiety, and kind of prone to depression parts, but then also be an effective boss. And even kind of modeling for your employees, like how you do that.
So what are some healthy ways to, because we just kind of listed out some unhealthy ways to do that. Are the healthy ways just the antithesis of that, or what is the healthy way to kind of process that? Because I'm just kind of thinking through in conversations that I've had with people and kind of things that I've dealt with over the years. You typically it just kind of gets stuck. Like there's no, and it can come out, and then all of these things that you just said, which is great to identify it, but now it's like, okay, so what should I be doing instead of directing it that way? What is a better way? Because what I'm hearing from people, and I'm sure what you and maybe this is just my perspective, but what I hear from people is it just internalizes down to depression, where they just kind of go and lock themselves in a room for a week and they just can't deal with it. So that's not a fun place to be at either. So what is the healthy way to deal with it?
The healthy way is to know that you're not alone and to not do it alone. So you might be at the top of the heap in your company, and that doesn't mean that you have to figure this out on your own. So that's where, I'm in the field, so I believe in it, but I think that's where therapy or talking to a coach can be helpful. But I think therapy can be wonderful because you're with someone who has the experience and the expertise to kind of sift through what is happening for you. So if you're locking yourself in a room to kind of try to shut it down, but you're not, because your depression is screaming at you, it's harder to dig yourself out of that alone. And sometimes we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps because we have this huge meeting we have to get to. So we fake it till we make it, which I don't necessarily believe in, but sometimes the force of like kind of do or die happens. But that doesn't really look at what is happening for you that causes you in the first place to shut down. And that's why I think if for anybody listening that is suffering with this, talking to someone who can help you organize and understand your thoughts better is going to be so helpful for you, because then once you can start to think more clearly and understand what is happening for you and have tools to continue to think clearly among the chaos and mess that owning a business can be,
sure,
you'll find that you're not going down the rabbit hole. You're not locking yourself away because those skills don't call to you in the same way. They don't feel good. So by starting to talk to somebody about it, you start to develop other healthy coping strategies like journaling, talking to yourself differently, moving your body. Maybe it's not you're going to the gym to look like you're playing the part and getting out working it out, but you're actually doing it because it feels good for your body and to kind of clear your mind. So just learning better strategies to take care of yourself. Your sleep improves, your appetite improves. When you're getting better sleep, your brain gets rest. When you have a restful brain, you can think more clearly. It regulates your appetite. So all of this stuff, if you're struggling with, I always tell people to start with finding a good therapist.
So just to play devil's advocate here, if someone is in a position where they are helping other people fix problems all the time, and then they sit and reflect upon themselves and say, well, heck, if I help other people solve their problems or fix problems, I should be able to solve and fix my own problems. I don't need somebody else to help me do that.
Oh, yes. Well, then nobody would need anybody because they would need you because they could solve it themselves, right? So we'd all just be sitting around twiddling our thumbs, right? It's, you're not perfect. And it's hard to see ourselves in ourselves sometimes. I mean, we can always, when we're helping somebody else, it's like, oh yeah, I got this. Like, this is what you should do. And then when it comes to ourselves, we get a little lost because we're with ourselves. We're in our brains all the time. So it's harder to do it for ourselves. And to have somebody else help us be curious about why we do the things we do, what can help us grow and kind of do better and be better. I get the question, and certainly I've heard that a lot. And again, if that means, what makes you so special, we all need people.
It's intriguing over the years. You sit down with someone and start to, maybe it's vent or talk through the problem, and that question is, why do you think that, or why are you processing it that way? And then it causes you to kind of rethink and go, well, hold on a second, why am I doing that? And so it gives you the ability effectively, right, to bounce that idea. So a coach or a therapist or whoever, but to bounce that kind of thought process off of your head, which is exactly the same reason that you're probably having those conversations with other people, because they need somebody to bounce that off of. Can you copy this key? That's a question we get asked about 3,422 times a year. And how can you actually be sure that the person who asked that question is supposed to get a copy of that key? Well, we think you should always know who can copy your keys to your business and your home, because it could be your neighbor, an old employee, a contractor, or even worse, your mother-in-law. At Loc-Doc Security, we believe in protected key systems, so you always know who has a copy of your key. To find out more, visit locdoc.net or stop by our Charlotte location. Loc-Doc Security, helping you protect your people and your property. I want to break it down into one of the items that you said is a good, healthy way to deal with this, and I'm sure this is something that you talk with people about quite frequently, is the journaling. So, is it okay to dive down that path a little bit? Because I'm interested as to your take on that, or how it is a helpful process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
let's dive down there.
So I'll tell you, from my perspective, from a journaling standpoint, I have tried it multiple times, and I'm fairly horrible with it. I have a buddy of mine, and we had a challenge going on back and forth, because I said I think it was either 2020 or 2021. I can't remember, but I was like, I'm going to journal every day what's going on, so that I have this, this just detailed information of where my brain was. And it lasted 17 days. And so he's told me that he was going to start doing it. And I said, see if you can beat 17 days. We never talked about it again, so I'm going to think that he probably didn't. Anyway, what are your suggestions for doing it and being consistent with it, I guess, is probably a better way to go through that process.
Yeah, the journaling and the New Year's resolutions and all of those things. I used to be an avid journaler. I have stacks of journals and have not really gotten back into it myself, but I've tweaked it over time. So journaling isn't for everybody. Some people really love it. Some people pick it up periodically. The reason why journaling can be so helpful is that it's almost like for any kind of Harry Potter fans out there. I always picture Dumbledore with his pensieve. So he takes his wand to his head, and out comes a thought, and then he puts it in this little kind of what looks like a little bird bath, and those are where the thoughts go, right? And then he can dive into the little bird bath and revisit the thoughts when he wants, but they have officially left his brain. And I think that's journaling, where instead of being in your head all of the time, and research shows that we have on average 70,000 thoughts a day, and we're not going to remember 70,000 thoughts. What are we going to remember? We're going to remember thoughts based on how we feel that day. So if we're feeling stressed, we're feeling anxious, we're feeling depressed, $100 says, like, what are your thoughts going to be? They're going to match what you feel. And when you're just in your head, that's all you see, that's all you think, that's all you feel. And when we think those thoughts over and over again, we're likely to kind of come up with evidence for how those thoughts are true, even though they might not be true, right? So if I felt like, oh, everybody hates me, and I go to the grocery store and somebody bumps me and doesn't say, excuse me, I'm like, oh, see, nobody knows me, people don't care about me. I'd find anything, right? And so with journaling, it, instead of just being in your head, it allows you to, for lack of a better word, purge the crap onto a page where, sorry, can I say that word?
Sure.
Okay. I just realized, but it allows you to kind of put stuff on a page where you can then see it. What are you saying to yourself about yourself? And having that kind of space between you and your thoughts actually gets you to reality test what is happening. And it also helps you process what is happening. So if you're going through a breakup, instead of just sitting with the feelings, putting it out there is just a cathartic release. So that's how journaling can be helpful. And sometimes it's just not, it doesn't call to us, and we would like it to, and it just doesn't. So then what do? Ideas and how I've tweaked it. I am someone who is a talker. I like to talk and process. So I will go for a walk and I'll put in my earbuds. And now, if I'm wearing a mask, people don't see my mouth moving anyway, and I'll talk to myself. I'll kind of work stuff out and hear my own thoughts and think like, okay, well, that doesn't feel really true. Or, okay, what am I so afraid of here? And while I can't go back and revisit it like I could a journal, it is a way for me to get the stuff out of my head. So I'm not just in my thoughts alone. So there are different ways to kind of tweak journaling, pen to a page. Some people will jot down notes on their iPhone really quickly.
Sure.
So it's just these bullet points of like, this is what I'm thinking, and then they put it away. So, and I've had other people that record, they'll just record their thoughts.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be, the standard, but if that's something that does call to you, you can find your medium to periodically get it out there. And it doesn't have to be, you better do it every day. You just meet yourself where you're at. If it just happens where you do it once a week or once a month, it's like, okay, well, that's better than it was. And maybe that kind of spurs you to kind of do it more.
That's some really great ideas. And I've never thought of it that way, because I feel like when people talk about journaling, it is a box. You have to, it's got to be in this type of form or whatever. And I think back years ago, I used to record a lot of video, and if I go back and look at them at times now, it is effectively a video journal of what in the world was going on in my brain at that time. And I think that's something that is I'm digestible, especially for those that may not enjoy the art of sitting down and writing out or typing out their thoughts. One of the things that I'm going to try this year, and I've set the format in place, so I haven't actually executed it yet. So we'll see how it works. But I set time aside every month, at the beginning of the month, to reflect back on the previous month. And basically I've got a document that I've set up that says, hey, what happened here, what happened here, what happened here. And it kind of guides me through what I want to think about and then digest it from there so that I can I effectively have a journal that way. I do like the idea of the voice recording or the video recording because I can agree with you on that. At times it's easier for me to just sit down and just word vomit it out instead of trying to type it out and get kind of lost in my thoughts.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't have to be traditional or perfect. You just want to not be in your brain all the time.
Yeah. No, I like that. I've jotted down a few notes from the conversation. I think that's really, a really big takeaway is that you can get the thoughts out of your head because when they stay in your head, you can come up with evidence that the story that you're telling yourself is true. It reminds me of a book from Brene Brown, Dare to, I think I might have it somewhere on this.
Daring Greatly?
Yeah, Dare to Lead, maybe, I think it's.
Okay.
Yeah, but she talks through that's a term that she uses all the time, the story that you're telling yourself. And if you haven't read it, you should go check it out because it's very eye-opening, especially when you're talking about these types of things. It happens to us all on a regular basis that we get kind of stuck into this mindset of, something happened and then I can come up with 1,000 pieces of evidence to say that it's true, even though it's not actually the case. One of my favorite things from that book, and I use it probably 7 or 8 times a week, is start with positive intent. Assume that the person that you're dealing with has your best interest in heart and that they're not out to cause negative in your life. So I like this. Okay, so we're talking about unhealthy ways to deal with stress and anxiety, healthy ways to deal with stress and anxiety. One of those is journaling. The other one, obviously, is to connect up with a therapist or a coach, somebody that can help walk you through it. Say, you know what, my mind is so jumbled right now, I don't even think that I could get it out in any type of a written form. I need somebody to kind of help me get it to that process. Talk me through a little bit about what that would look like from your perspective, or what somebody could expect if they said, hey, I want to pair up with a therapist to kind of help me work through this stress and anxiety.
So the way that it would typically work is you would plan on at least an hour a week of meeting with someone. And if you were meeting with me, the goal would be to work on what are you saying to yourself about yourself, and trying to separate fact from fiction. Just because you think or believe something doesn't mean that it's true, but when it feels true, how do you know it's not true? And that's where I think you were kind of alluding to with Brene Brown, and what her work is kind of in the cognitive therapy approach. So, how do you rewire your brain to think more clearly? How do you start to think in reality versus letting the emotion drive what you're seeing? When we let the emotion drive what we're seeing, again, we're going to be picking up evidence along the way of somebody didn't look at me when I walked in the room, they must hate me. Somebody used periods instead of exclamation points on a text, they must be mad at me, right? Like any little piece of kernel of evidence is like, I suck, I suck, I suck, I suck, I suck. And then you get to me and you feel like you're the worst person. You don't know how to lead. You don't know what you're doing. You're a fraud. How did you get here in the first place? And we clean that up, right? So it's the mountain between you and me, and the mountain is your negative thoughts, your emotions, stress, anxiety, depression. You've got that view, and that's the only view you have. And part of therapy is how do you come around the mountain and see it from a different perspective? So we can't change the trigger. Maybe work is blowing up. Maybe all your employees are mad. Maybe stuff at home is really stressful. Like all of that is fact, but how you look at it can change. And then when you can look at it more clearly, you start to feel better. So you can actually think your way to feeling better. And essentially, Brene talks about taking the positive approach. It's similar to what would you tell your best friend in the same situation? That's where I go to. So stuck in negative thoughts, you feel like you're, the worst ever, it's like, would you tell your best friend, actually, I've been meaning to tell you, but you don't know how to lead, and your company is going to go under fast because you're a fraud. You would never say that. You probably wouldn't even say it to a stranger on the street.
Sure.
So when you can start to think about what you would tell your best friend, then reality starts to check in, right? Because you're now removing yourself from the heat and from the anxious, depressed, angry view, and you're coming around the mountain and taking a look at it from a different lens. So that's where therapy can start, is what are you saying to yourself about yourself? Where is fact versus fiction? And what strategies can you get so that you can think better and start to do the stuff on your own, along with whether that's doing some exploratory work of, well, why do you think you got here? Here you are owning this company, for example, or this, entrepreneur, you're in this high power, high stress job. Clearly you've had some success under your belt, and you're also struggling with some internal demons. Like, where do you think that comes from? So doing some exploratory, as well as future forward. Let me give you some strategies so that today you can start to feel better and start to feel like you're making some progress. So that's a long-winded explanation of kind of what to expect when you are in therapy, and feeling like you can connect with someone. That part of having a good therapy experience is finding a therapist you feel like can really understand you and hear you, and it feels like a good fit. You can do some good work that way.
I like this. This is great information. One of the things I'll tell you personally, and I try to put myself in the listener's space as much as possible. Oftentimes, and I don't mean this as an insult to you by any stretch, therapy has a negative connotation. A coach has more of a positive connotation, right?
Right. Therapy, you're crazy. Coach, you just have some problems that
you're trying to get better, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but what you're describing is effectively it's whichever title that you kind of put on it, and maybe there is a more specific definition between the two. But at the end of the day, it's are you gonna get a good coach, or are you gonna get a good therapist? There's a guy that I heard say one time, if you want to get better at something, or if you want to be the best at something, it oftentimes requires a coach. You look at the top level athletes and everything else, and they've got strength coaches and position coaches and all these other things. So if you think that you're going to do it on your own, then you've got a lesson to learn. So I think that it's a very interesting exercise. And I think that no matter how you look at it, find yourself a coach or a therapist, or find yourself a therapist and call them a coach, right? Mm-hmm. Either way. Mm-hmm. But it's going to help you unpack some of these hurdles that you've probably gotten yourself stuck at.
Yes, we all do. I mean, again, I'm in the field, so I tend to believe it, but we all have work to do, and our work never ends until we're 106 and we croak, and then who knows, right? Sure. After that. But the joy is in the journey. So that it can be hard and painful, but you'll learn and can be curious about yourself, and that can be a really wonderful space to be in.
Sure. I like it. You have a online course as well that could probably help out with some of this, breaking every day into slivers, not chunks. And we'll definitely link this below. But walk us through a little bit about what this course helps us with.
So I wrote this course for people who couldn't, see me, couldn't find me, were looking for the strategies that I teach and thinking through, like, how do I get these skills to people? So I wrote this course, and it's 7 modules of pretty much I call it my mini dissertation in stress management. So everything, all my training, all the skills that I teach in my practice are in this course, including the worksheets. So it's learning about stress in relationships, social anxiety, stress at work, how sleep gets impacted, your relationship with food, if that gets impacted, negative thoughts. So kind of just gave you a snapshot of how negative thoughts can really harm how we think and feel about ourselves and other people, doing a deeper dive into how do you stop negative thinking and rewire your brain to start feeling better and to be in reality. So that is all in there. so that no matter where you are, you can always access any type of skill you need. It's there for you. Almost like I could try to be in your back pocket, and whether you're on a work trip and you're getting stuck with difficulties with a coworker or your boss, and you can just read that module real quick and get some pointers, or going through some social networking and feeling anxious about that, and there's skills for that. So just trying to think through, how do people access skills as they need it? And people have said that they'll pick it up periodically, and module 1 through 3 really speak to them, and then they realize, actually, wait, now I've got to get to module 6 because that's coming up in my life. So, and once you have the course, you always have it. So that's why I wanted to write it, just to give people access to the strategies that I have.
So correct me if I'm wrong, what you just said. So once you purchase the course, it's basically kind of an evergreen. You have lifetime access to it. Lifetime access, until the internet disappears.
Until something else happens, and then we rework it. But yes, it's yours for life.
Very cool. Well, hey, I tell you what, this has been a very eye-opening conversation. Hopefully the folks that are listening take a lot of value out of it as well. I think, I've found value in connecting up with a business coach. I've found value in having these types of conversations because it really unpacks a lot of why I'm stuck and how can I get past it. So I appreciate the advice. I think you've given a lot of really practical pieces that people can take and go with. And I'll have to check back in with you later on this year to see if my journaling exercise is actually sticking. But I have gone to the extent of setting up all of the templates through the entire year. So if it fails this time, then I'm just a total procrastinator.
Well, you know what? Don't judge yourself. That's a negative thought. And you just meet yourself where you're at, right? If it's not your jam, you don't have to force it. You just find another way that, it helps you kind of move through the process. So it's all good. Well, progress, not perfection.
Progress, not perfection. I've also found that if you record a podcast every week for multiple years, you can also dissect a lot of your thoughts in that as well. So
you go.
Just a pro tip there. Hey, Angela, thanks again for joining us today. It was an absolute blast. Got lots of takeaways here and some things that we can work on. Journaling, I think that's one thing. Figure out a creative way that you can do journaling. If you're good with handwriting something, if you like to type up a document, maybe it's just grab your phone and record a quick video. I think those are really great advice because, as she said, when you get those thoughts out of your head, you can recycle them and understand them from a disconnected perspective. Oftentimes we leave them in our heads and we come up with more evidence of why that particular thing is true. Absolutely love that. I'm going to try to work through that myself. Thank you for joining us today. Please make sure you subscribe because we have a brand new episode coming out next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. and we don't want you to miss it. Thanks, and we'll see you then.